Hello, I am Wei. I started my first foreign language English from the scratch. In the beginning, actually I didn't even know how many words are in the alphabet. After a year of extensive study, I was able to understand what other people were saying without any fear after a year and a half of language study. Now I can speak 4 languages: Mandarin, English, Japanese, and Cantonese. After this year of language study, I would like to share with you how I learned those languages from zero knowledge to fluency. You don't need to envy others, and you can actually speak those languages fluently yourself. If you are interested in the topics that I share, please give me a like and turn on the notification bell. People are always curious about how long does it take to learn a language from scratch. According to Pearson estimates, it takes roughly about 4,490 hours for a slow learner to learn a language from CEFR A1 to C1 level. Let's say if you study 3 hours per day, it roughly takes about 15 months or roughly 4 years and 2 months to achieve this goal. Actually, this is a very time-consuming process and it's not an efficient way of language learning. If you are, let's say, a fast learner, it takes only about 1,520 hours. Let's say if you also study 3 hours per day of language learning, you will need about 60 months or roughly 1 year and 4 months to achieve the C1 level. For those people who are not familiar with the CEFR, it actually stands for Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. It is an international standard for describing language ability on a 6-point level from A1 up to the C2 for those who have mastered languages. A C1 level means that you can give a clear, well-structured presentation on a complex subject. After reading numerous papers and combining with my own language learning experiences, I can summarize the 4 main tips of language learning. I believe if you apply these languages learning methods in your learning journey, I'm confident that you can significantly reduce the time that you need to learn languages, and with the aim to become a fast learner. Here are the 4 main keywords, that is I am to be. The first tip is I, stands for immerse yourself. The purpose is to immerse yourself completely in a language that you are learning. By doing this, you can gradually understand the meaning of the foreign language. You probably won't understand every language that you hear with, but you can start to grasp the meaning of the language that you are learning and how the native speakers pronounce it. When I talk about total immersion, let me give you an example. For example, if you are in a restaurant and you are start to order a meal, you can think about how you can order a meal using the language that you are learning by using some of the keywords that you've just learned. Remember to write down any new words that you don't know and start to construct the sentences using the key vocabulary that you have just learned. And then gradually you start to move into the more complex sentences structure. The second tip stands for M, that is motivation. To learn a new language faster, you need a strong motivation that keeps you wake up every day. For example, many of my school friends who actually want to learn the language Japanese because they love Japanese animation, manga, or even cosplaying. This internal desire really helps them to learn the language faster and more efficient than others. Actually, I remember when I actually first working in Hong Kong, I couldn't understand a single word of Cantonese they were saying, as it's very much different from Mandarin pronunciation. However, my former boss actually asked me to prepare the meeting minutes in English while they spoke in Cantonese. It was a challenging task initially for me, but actually I used it as an internal desire of learning Cantonese. Within about 3 months' time, I started to understand what they were saying in the meeting, and I can actually take the meeting of minutes properly while they were spoken in Cantonese. So I strongly suggest you that if you want to learn a language faster, you need to find a strong internal reason why you want to learn. For example, you might want to make a girlfriend from France. That's why you learn French. The third tip stands for T. That means take risks and speak the language whenever you can, but with a clear purposes and a feedback mechanism. What I mean is that you need to practice the language with the native speakers or someone who are fluent in the language itself. Please don't practice by yourself because it's hard for you to identify why you have speak correctly or why you have speak wrongly. And whenever you practice with native speakers, try to get a genuine feedback from them and record it so that you will not forget next time. I remember when actually learning Cantonese when I was working in Hong Kong. I actually asked my colleagues to give me a genuine feedback on what I have pronounced it wrongly or correctly, so that I can record it on my notebook so I won't forget next time. IN to B. B is the last tips, stands for be thick-skinned. This is more about self-esteem. What I mean is don't worry about making mistakes in front of the native speakers. It's important to have this mindset at the beginning because you will definitely make a lot of mistakes along the way, and sometimes you receive even negative feedbacks about your pronunciation or language use. For example, I remember that some of the Cantonese pronunciation is actually very similar, and I actually accidentally pronounced one wrong, and which are tend to be foul languages, which I'm sorry to the listeners. To summarize all the key points into 1 minute, I try to come up with 4 main tips, that is IN to B, to speed up the language learning. First tip, immerse yourself in the language learning. For example, imagine ordering the food in the language that you are learning and write down the new words, and gradually you can build up the vocabulary from complex sentences. Second tip, motivation. Find the inner self and a strong reason why you want to learn a language. Actually, I learned the Cantonese because my former boss asked me to prepare the meeting minutes in English while they spoke in Cantonese. With the 3 months, I'm able to start understanding the meetings. Third tips, take risks and seek feedback. Practice with the native speakers and get their feedback. When I was learning Cantonese, I asked my colleagues to correct my mistakes and note them down. Fourth tips, be thick-skinned. Don't worry about making mistakes while you are learning languages. Actually, it's a part of the learning process that we need to go through. For myself, I made plenty of mistakes in the past. For example, I accidentally using the foul languages in the Cantonese as their pronunciation is very similar. Hopefully, today's sharing can help you with your language learning journey.